Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining us from today. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday and week so far. We are live, and just to make sure that everyone can see and hear us, find the chat and let us know where you are joining us from today. While you are doing that, let me just tell you that we have a really awesome webinar planned for you today, and we're going to be diving into that in just a few moments. I'm seeing that getting responses. In case this is the first time you're visiting one of our digital events, welcome. We hold our webinars, roundtables, workshops, and onboarding days to share some insightful and actionable information with the SEO community, help you make the most of our tools, and hopefully give you something, some actionable takeaways that will help you increase the traffic to your website. Let's move on to the topic of today's. I wanted to talk about, before getting over to me, I wanted to talk about a bit about the topic of today's website. Of today's webinar. As you're all aware, ChatGPT is out. It's AI that really helps us write a lot of stuff, and not only that. And I don't want to jump into that in too many details, because I'm pretty sure all of you are aware of this technology and have a rough understanding of at least a rough understanding of what it's capable of. Now, let me introduce myself and our guest today. My name is Andrew Zarudny, and I'm part of the marketing team over at SEO Ranking. But enough about me. Let's talk about our wonderful guest, Natalie Henley. She is the CEO and owner of Volume 9, with a lot of experience in marketing research, digital marketing, PR. And I would love for Natalie to say a couple of words about herself, and maybe like the ins and outs of how she got into SEO.
Well, hey, good morning. It's morning for me. I'm in Denver, Colorado, if anybody else is in mountain time. But first of all, thank you for that introduction, Andrew. And thank you for making me look so good in this fancy slide. This is much nicer than the slides I normally make. So thank you. I have been in digital for, since I started my career. And I think like most of us, I did not study SEO in school because that wasn't an option. I remember I took business administration, and I remember arguing with my professor that the internet was going to be a channel that you would use for marketing long term. And they told me that internet would never overtake radio. So that was fun. I should go dig them up and talk to them. But I sort of, I graduated into the Great Recession, cut my teeth in market research, and I was really fortunate to work on some really great campaigns. And then got myself in basically at the ground floor in SEO and social media and communications, and worked my way up from there. So Volume 9 has been in business since 2006. And
Wow.
we're really fortunate because we're, unlike a lot of digital agencies who kind of say they do everything. We understand a lot about digital, but our real whole dharma is helping brands grow online without having to pay for every click long term. So we're really focused on SEO, content, social media, analytics. And because we only kind of work on one section of the digital landscape, we've just had some really cool opportunities to work on some really big clients, all the way down to some kind of cool local brands here in Denver. So we've kind of run the gamut, which has been great for us because we kind of get to see what works across a lot. And we've been through a whole lot. We've been through all those algorithm updates that were named after animals. We've been through AI and Google SERPs. We've been through you remember when we used to all have to like track other search engine market share, and then Google became the dominant one, and now it's going to be a thing again. So just been on the SEO roller coaster for a real long time. So
Awesome. Well, can't wait to see what you have to share with us, because you have a lot of experience definitely to share. And I also wanted to guys let you know that you can find in the chat, we are joined by Valerie from SEO Rankings team. So if you have any questions about our tools, which is a great segue because we have a short overview of our platform up on the screen. So yeah, if you have any questions about the platform, Valerie will happily address them. And in case you guys are not aware of what SEO Ranking is, we are an all-in-one SEO platform with both essential and advanced tools for newbies and data-hungry experts. And we try to have everything covered for any sort of business, even if you run a one-man show, if you have an agency or any other capability that is involved in SEO. So we will invite you to a free trial of SEO ranking if you're interested. But for now, let me just say quickly that Natalie is going to have a presentation for about 30-40 minutes, and you are welcome to throw your questions into the chat, but we will address them during the dedicated Q&A at the very end. And if we have a lot of interesting questions coming in, we will stick around for longer than an hour, for like an hour, 10 minutes max. But yeah, you're welcome to throw your questions in the chat. I'll be keeping my eye on it. You will get a replay. Everything will come to your inbox. So for now, you can just relax, take it all in, and just ask away the questions. So yeah, Natalie, the floor is yours. Please let us know what we can do with AI and stuff like ChatGPT and Bard.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so as we dive in here, I just started my stopwatch. I'm going to try and really keep us to 40 minutes. There's a lot of content here. I want to make a disclaimer. Um, AI has already changed. It changed from when I finished these slides earlier this week. It changed from when I tweaked them this morning to try and add stuff in. AI is changing constantly. There's a really great example I'll give of, I was giving a presentation to a group about ChatGPT. This is really forcing me to learn how to enunciate well. And I was telling all about 3.5 and its drawbacks, and that GPT-4 was going to be happening sometime this year, and that was going to update a lot of things. As I was saying that, GPT-4 was launching. So, by the end of this presentation, half of this could be invalid, and there'll be some new tool that's launched, or new adaptation, or new free AI thing. So just know that this is changing at an extraordinarily rapid rate. Also, just to be totally honest, I would not call myself an AI expert. I don't have a massive server. I'm not programming language models. I'm not coding things in Python. Um, as an agency, what we've really done at Volume 9 is we're leaning in, and we are testing as many tools as we can get our hands on. Fun fact, it's becoming my new pet peeve for people to just recommend AI tools that they haven't tried. So I'm always like, someone puts a tool on LinkedIn and I go, oh, cool, this thing launched AI. And I look and I'm like, this is garbage. You're just trying to get LinkedIn engagement. So just know any tool I recommend today are going to be tools that we've personally tested, and we just really like. Um, we're leaning in where we can. We're really trying to figure out where to add things into the workflows. And I'm just trying to synthesize a whole lot of information, because I'm finding that, it's really feels impossible, because it is, to stay on top of everything that's happening and all the possibilities. And then on top of that, there's just a whole bunch of noise, a whole bunch of people creating content that reads like, this is the newest thing in AI and it's a game changer. And therefore, if you don't know about it, you're behind. And I think that kind of messaging makes us all feel real concerned and panicked. But a lot of times that's just to get engagement. And a lot of times, some of the things that they're announcing really aren't that big of game changers, or they aren't something where you got to stop everything and learn that new tool right away. Which leads me to my next step of, don't panic. I think AI is in a spot where we are all figuring it out. There are a whole lot of self-proclaimed AI experts, and I'm finding that very few of them are truly actually AI experts. And the world of AI is big, broad, and overwhelming. And just know that we're all working through this together. And that if you're already leaning in, you're already trying to figure this out, you're already testing it, you're already sort of challenging yourself to stay on top of this and sort of adapt to this, you're actually doing a lot better than a lot of professionals. I would say that probably at this point, about half of the digital marketers that I'm talking to are kind of in that head in the sand moment of, I don't trust AI. Or, I had a conversation with someone this week where they tried Bard once early on and it was garbage. And so they're like, Bard's no good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's changing all the time. You can't just, you can't write it off. So try not to panic. It is overwhelming. Hopefully today will make this a little less overwhelming, but know that we're all in this together. And I would really encourage to, as I go through, as people have questions in the comment, or you're trying things, or you have ideas, feel free today to share that stuff so that everybody can kind of group learn here. And I'm always interested if you got a really cool tool that you've added in your workflow or really something cool, send that to me afterwards. We'll take a look at it and see if it's worth it. We're kind of doing this presentation, the updated version of this presentation at this rate, at least weekly with different audiences. So we're always interested in what more tools and ideas we can add into the stack. But if you're kind of newer to AI, hopefully, I think don't panic. We're all in this together. We're going to get there. Um, Today, I'm going to walk through some distinct sections, and I've got a stopwatch going to try and make sure we land here so we've got some time for Q&A. First, I want to start with a little background on AI, on what the heck is going on. And then I want to talk pros and cons because I think it would be irresponsible not to. And then I get to the good stuff, where it's the roll up your sleeves, pull out your legal notepads. I want to give you ideas of things you could be doing to get AI into your SEO workflows, and where we've seen some success and where things maybe aren't as rosy. And then I want to spend a little time, hopefully helping you avoid an existential crisis, but maybe not. Um, but just kind of giving some, easy extrapolations of where AI is headed. So let's dig in a little bit. A little history lesson. You might be hearing a lot of people say stuff like, AI is not new. Well, they're technically right. AI is not a new term. Actually, 1956 at the Dartmouth Convention was the first time a group of scientists got together and the term came up. And it was kind of this preponderance of, could technology, at some point think? And then between basically the 1950s and the 1990s, uh, AI was wholly owned by science. And it was sort of this speculation and this postulation. And then in the 90s, something really interesting happened. In 1997, IBM has a AI called Deep Blue, and it beats a world champion chess player. And for the first time, we've got a use case that, man, artificial intelligence could think enough and strategize enough to beat a human chess player. And then between the 90s and let's call it the where we are in the 2000s, now artificial intelligence is owned by big companies. And this is where I think when people are going, artificial intelligence isn't new, you'll see like there's been lots of tools. We've heard about IBM Watson, we've heard about RankBrain at Google, we've heard about all of this artificial intelligence happening sort of behind the scenes. And then in 2015, a group of individuals, including Elon Musk, get together and they found a nonprofit called OpenAI. And then shortly thereafter, Elon Musk resigns, and then OpenAI becomes for profit instead of a not for profit. And they start working through language models. And then this is kind of the iteration where I think everybody, especially in the SEO community, has really started to pay a little more attention, because even a few years ago, everybody started testing tools like Jasper.ai. And Jasper.ai is based on the language model. GPT, and I think originally it was based on GPT-2 that OpenAI has launched and then later updated to GPT-3. And so people started having the ability to go into a tool like Jasper, where it was pretty cheap per month, and start putting content in. And that content, it was a lot cheaper than hiring a copywriter. It wasn't the best content. You read it and could definitely tell it was written by a robot, but it was better than nothing. And if you're just, a content farm trying to push out content, hey, you've got Jasper. And then we go into 2022 when some interesting things happen. One of the big ones being that ChatGPT launches an application that's free and widely available on top of a language model, ChatGPT-3, later GPT-3.5, and the world lights on fire. And as you think about the timeline and all this happens, the reason why this is really relevant is, yes, AI is not new, and yes, it's steadily being developed, but for the first time, we've got a language model that writes content that sounds more like a human, that's hard to read and go, oh my gosh, that's definitely a robot. And it's free and widely available. And all of a sudden, people are developing additional applications, and they're creating applications on top of ChatGPT. And it's making AI way more accessible, which was when OpenAI was founded, was the whole point. That was their whole mission statement, was make artificial intelligence more accessible. So it's important to understand as kind of this whole thing of what's happening is we're seeing that hockey stick of AI adoption. But it's really important when you're thinking about sort of the iceberg beneath the ocean here to kind of understand how AI works fundamentally. So, and this is going to be really important when we start talking about the ethics, and then we also talk about where this could be going. So first, you want to assume. I don't know if anybody here is a child of the '80s like me. I like to explain this in the context of there's a really great movie, Short Circuit, and Johnny Five, the sarcastic robot. I really like to think of this um, in frames of Johnny Five because I think that works great, and that movie is hilarious. But every language model, every artificial intelligence program starts with a set of inputs. They've got to get data from somewhere. So there's this big old database that they originally get. So there's all these inputs that flow into this sort of database. And then out of that database, they build a language model that sits on top of that. And those language models are designed to do something specific. So in the case of ChatGPT or BARD or some of the ones that are catching a lot of attention, they're predictive language models, which means that they're designed to guess the next word. Um, and then on top of those language models, we then have applications. So when you hear something like, well, ChatGPT is based on a database based on inputs from 2021, that is true. That initial set of inputs in that database ended at 2021. Now, where it gets a little iffy is that we know that it's continually filling the database as you continually put inputs in. So each time you're putting something into ChatGPT, that becomes a new input that then feeds to the database, that then feeds to the language model. Um, so you've got one, privacy concerns. And then two, you also have the concerns of these inputs. It's not particularly clear on some of these language models what these inputs are that they're getting information from. And there's even a great quote from Google engineers on their AI that they don't even know what it's doing at this point, which, again, we'll get into like some of these bigger concerns. So it's important to note that as we're thinking about AI and the breadth and the scope of where this is going, is that as we're talking about ChatGPT and BARD, we're talking, or even like, let's just focus on just ChatGPT. We're talking about one language model and one application that's sitting on top of one language model. So why this is exploding right now, we know that the language model GPT-3, then 3.5, then 4 are way better. And they kind of said each time they updated this, it was a 10x improvement over the version before. Even the difference between 3.5 and 4 is the difference between ChatGPT was able to sort of scrape by the bar exam versus -4. It was able to soar through the bar exam and ace it, and just the nuances of the difference there. We have this free application that launches, and all of a sudden, this sort of brewing storm that has been artificial intelligence all of a sudden goes from this nice to have and like, yeah, it's on the priority list and we're thinking about it and it's a nice to have to table stakes. Now we've seen every tech product on the planet has seemingly launched some sort of AI application in the last, 6 weeks. And this is where I think that feeling of overwhelm has come in. And we're seeing that especially with Google and Bing, with Bing bringing on ChatGPT. And then now Google is raced to launch Bard. They declared a code red, and I have a whole slide about what's going on at Google. But you can feel it like this is the first time, or one of the first times, that an entity like Google has been way behind and has reacted and has sprinted to catch up. And I think that panic sprint that Google's going through is what a lot of companies are going through. And again, this is causing some interesting issues because if everybody is just sucking in oxygen trying to develop AI as quickly as possible, how responsibly can they possibly be doing that? So, some pros and cons of artificial intelligence. There's so many quotes going out there, but I really like this one the best because I think it really encapsulates this is a seismic shift. It's interesting to note this timeline of, okay, science owned it for a hunk of time, and then big companies, and then it became widely available, and then we're losing our minds. We're all trying to catch up. This is actually not too dissimilar from the path that email went in terms of how dramatic email now is to our communications and how people felt when it was being announced and how people were reacting to it. But the same science owned it, and then big companies and that, and kind of the same kind of general timeline. I think this is going to be a bigger shift than um, email was. I think that we are about to see a massive shift in how work gets done, how the world progresses, and it's going to touch every industry. Just so happens that because of the language model and the application that has launched right now, which is ChatGPT, and based on predictive language models, there's just some really obvious applications into digital marketing. So our industry is kind of leading the charge in terms of, well, how do we lean in and adapt to this? Which can be good and bad. So some pros. Um, if these are all kind of basically this same kind of concept of, I think most digital marketers today are up against the concept of we have less budget and we need to get more done and drive better results with that. And AI is an obvious direct line to achieve that. It increases efficiency, it helps save money, it helps us stay ahead, it helps us get more done. And all of these are extraordinarily compelling reasons to adopt AI wherever possible. Um, However, the other side of that coin is there are absolutely some risks. And I think the challenge you've got is we're not sure of all the risks. I'm going to try and articulate some of them. But even the rest of, like, could, a big question is, could, could AI generated content risk my AI, could it risk my SEO rankings? The answer is maybe. And there's some reasons why, reasons not, but there's definitely some risks in using predictive language models to generate content. There's the ethical concerns of where's the data coming from? What is this database? There's this concept of critical thinking of, are we removing critical thinking from the equation? And is that going to harm us and our brands long term? And then a big thing here that kind of all of these circle around is accuracy is, at the moment, these predictive language models are not particularly accurate. And that's a really big underscore. And we're already seeing lots of examples where this concern is being ignored and people are just publishing irresponsible content. And it's causing big problems. And there was a really great case study from CNET last year. They were using Jasper.ai on the GPT-3 language model, and they were using that to create content. And one, they plummeted on SEO rankings because they got caught in the helpful content update. But on top of that, they started realizing that the content was copywritten. So then they started creating updates at CNET where they won't use AI generated content now. But you could, if you go look at their rankings, if you kind of just use a third party tool to look at their ranking profile, you'll just see how it tanked last year because they were using AI generated content. So there's definitely some accuracy risks, some concern risks, some copyright risks. There's risks. Um, but let's jump into a few use cases. So I think there's a lot of people that they're just kind of broad use cases, but I want to break it down into SEO specifically in kind of our world of, okay, where is an application on a predictive language model particularly useful for SEO? And I want to break it into a few different categories. One, research. I think a lot of us spend a lot of time just trying to find information. Hey, I try to build a content outline. Hey, I need ideas to fill something in, and kind of go get some information. It can be really helpful in doing some of your groundwork research for you. Like, hey, what are 5 legitimate sites that talk about this topic that I could link to? And also, too, as I go through this, I would like to note that every image in this section was generated by AI. So thanks, AI, for generating my images in my presentation for me. Next, coming up with ideas. I think that, especially a lot of us, when you're working in SEO, sometimes you're deep into a technical crawl, and then, oh my gosh, I gotta come up with 10 ideas for the blog today. And you've got to totally switch gears, and sometimes it can be just really hard to get into that idea mindset. And these tools can be really great to start sparking your ideas and sort of getting you into more of a creative mindset. Writing content, this is the obvious one. I think we've all noticed this, whether it's short content like a page title and meta description, all the way up to long form content and articles. This can be a really great partner in helping you get prose just done. And then writing code. It's, whether it's writing new code, whether it's cleaning up your code, there's some really great applications of this, especially if you're doing something like developing an SEO tool. There's a lot of really cool case studies of using something like a ChatGPT to develop a simple code to make a tool that helps you do things like earn links and increase user engagement on your site. I'm going to put a big note here. Please don't ask me a lot of questions about this. I am not a Python coder, but I do have a couple disclaimers I want to give because my husband is, and he's in information security. If you're using these tools to write code, please make sure your code is secure, make sure your code's not bloated. And if you really don't know how to write code or you don't know what you're doing, please try not to use this as your first foray into artificial intelligence. Overarchingly, you're going to hear a recommendation from me today that in SEO, I think that AI is a tremendous like outreach, like a extension of your critical SEO knowledge. But if you're going into something where you just have no idea and you have no idea how to fact check it, you have no idea to gauge if it's right or not, um, that's probably not a great use of artificial intelligence, especially at this stage in the game, because it's going to make it really hard to fact check. Well, is this accurate? Is it not accurate? Um, is this a great recommendation? I don't know. Is this good code? If you don't know how to go back and evaluate that this is good code or figure out how to troubleshoot it, just consider maybe not starting there. All right. Oh, and then data analysis with a big asterisk that right now on ChatGPT and Bard specifically, this is text data analysis. But I have a kind of a cool example. I did a simple client survey amongst my um, current clients, and I used a set of I ran it through a simple like Google form. I made a survey. I started my background's market research, so I started with quantitative, moved into qualitative, had clients fill it in for me. I copy and pasted the results into ChatGPT, and it analyzed my client satisfaction survey for me and the results. And then it gave me recommendations of things that we could be doing to better improve our client satisfaction based on the things that they input. So it absolutely can do analysis and it can do a little bit of quantitative, but it really can do a great job on data and qualitative analysis. Big asterisks there. You can't put giant inputs into it. There is a limit to how much it'll let you input. But that was just a really great example of some data analysis that really quickly can look and go, okay, based on this, I can give you some quick inputs. Okay, so let's get to the tactical stuff because I know that's what everybody's excited about. As we get in, I think a lot of people are realizing that the art of using Bard in GPT is really first and foremost an art of mastering your prompts. This kind of reminds me back in the day of, I don't know if you remember, like when your mom started using Google and you had to teach her how to use it and how to do a search, and we're all like, okay, no, add words as you're searching. I think this is going to be really similar. Of we're going to have to kind of learn how to master prompts. And I think the big thing that switched is that you're in a cohesive conversation. So instead of just this one opportunity to put in a one keyword search or a single prompt, you have the ability to build your prompt and communicate to get out what you need. So as you think about mastering your prompts, you really want to think about giving some great information and backdrop, and then continuing the conversation to funnel it down to what you need. So you always want to start with context. Who are you? What's our brand? What's the role? You want to provide a clear topic. You want to give it really clear questions. You don't really want to make the robot think too much. It's really note this is a predictive language model, so it's going to guess the next word. It's not tremendously great at critical thinking. Um, but giving it clear questions and instructions are really helpful. And then you want to follow up, feed it examples, give it feedback to kind of narrow it in. Um, so as I was doing, like, for example, I was working on persona work for a client this week, and I started with a lot of really great context about who they were, and we've started getting in the habit of saving kind of the core starting point on prompts for clients and for ourselves. Of okay, here's a whole bunch of information about my brand every time, so that I'm starting this chat and you know who we are and what your role is. And then I got them into the clear topic and I started asking it questions and I got it to a persona and then I streamlined it and then I gave it. I was like, okay, this is the persona. I like this. We're done. Now rinse and repeat. Do this on the second persona. And I was able to kind of really filter it down. So you really want to think about doing this in stages. So here's kind of an example. We'll send the slides out afterwards, so I don't have to read this, but a bunch of information about the background, who we are, who do we want to talk to, what role do you want to play. And I like using the prompts of don't respond yet because I don't need it gunking up my chat. You can always hit don't respond or don't stop generating if it starts saying stuff to you. But I like doing don't respond yet to let it know I'm feeding it information before I want it to do something, to really kind of get it down to what I want. But you want to think about, you really want to get these prompts sculpted down. And I find that a lot of initial questions in artificial intelligence and using ChatGPT really start here of really doing a great job on your prompts. And I have a gift for you. So everything I'm about to walk you through we went through the prompt exercise for. So when I say something like, "Hey, this does a great job with meta descriptions," it's not just that recommendation. We've put together a comprehensive prompt sheet that you can download on our website. It's free, and we just basically went through the prompts we went through to get it to give us a nice output. I think someone had a question even early on about page titles and meta descriptions and how to get it to do this. And we went through kind of the prompt sequence to getting it to do that output in a way that we were really happy with. And then I also gave feedback on the ones that I liked versus the ones that I didn't. So enjoy my sarcastic commentary. And that's going to be my next asterisk, that just because it can do it doesn't mean it's the right tool or that you should use it to do it. There are a lot of tools out there that are doing better jobs than this. And in some cases, the tool's just not at a spot, especially in SEO, where, like, yes, it'll give you keyword information, but is it the best place to go get it? I don't know. So I gave you, well, as we go through, I'm going to give you some of my inputs too on where I think it's great to use these tools, and where I don't think that at the moment this is the right place to be putting a lot of time and energy, or that there's another tool that might do it better. But as we go through this, I recommend you download this guide. It's free. It's our gift to you. It's at our website, v9digital.com/AI. If you have any problems getting to it or downloading it, please let me know. I have an email at the end of the presentation you can get to. Okay, so first category of things that you can use a tool like ChatGPT to help with is SEO strategy. So some things it can help with is things like structuring your SEO strategy, giving you best practices. Hey, here's the best practices for ranking, or people have been using it to go, hey, give me strategies of how to write this better, how to rank this website better for expertise, authority, and trust. So you can spit that input into ChatGPT, and it will absolutely spit something back out at you. If you've been in SEO as long as I have, you're gonna feel like that output's gonna feel kind of generic and not all that helpful. So it's not my favorite output. It's kind of like, yeah, if I went to Google and asked for the best practices for SEO, I'd get something similar, but I don't know that that's exactly how I would articulate this is the best way to approach SEO or an SEO strategy. Um, so again, you can do it, but I don't know the way I recommend it. But what is really cool is as you dial in, if you can get really specific, like, hey, I need 10 out of the box ideas for SEO strategy for a local ninja studio that's having trouble ranking, blah, blah, blah. If you can lean in and really kind of provide it more information and get it to kind of get more specific with you, I think it can give you some ideas. And again, I think it'll give you 10 ideas and you might like 7 of them and put 7 of those in the strategy. Again, I wouldn't rely on this as the Bible for SEO strategy, but I think as you're developing your SEO strategies, it can be a really helpful tool to bat ideas off of it. And then I also really love it for, I think one of the things that is really important in SEO and content is personas and goals and KPIs, and really kind of getting some of those fundamentals, they're good marketing fundamentals, and then certainly important for SEO. Um, and getting some of those of like, hey, what are, if a client really cares about driving local foot traffic, what goals should we be tracking, and what are the major KPIs we can track in digital? It can just kind of give you a nice map of that stuff. It's things I think a lot of us sort of know intrinsically, we could sit around and think out. But it's nice to have a tool that gives us the exhaustive list, and hey, maybe it gives you a KPI that you kind of forgot about or you didn't mention, or like, oh, that's a good one to add in. So it can do a really nice job on that stuff to just make sure you're giving clients a holistic strategy, or developing a holistic strategy for your own brand. Next, keywords. Okay, so this one, oh my gosh, I see everybody talking about how this gives keywords. And you'll notice I've got asterisks next to some of these recommendations. The asterisk means that I think that this is a great way, a great tactic to do in AI, and with ChatGPT and Bard specifically. You might notice I don't have an asterisk next to any of these. I've tried it lots of different ways, and honestly, as a predictive language model, these tools know what keywords are, sort of, and they will give you an output, but the output just isn't as good as what you can get in paid tools like an SE ranking, um, where you can go in and do your own keyword research, look at competitive keywords, find competitive gaps, do semantic keyword research and optimization. yes, it'll give you some of this stuff. Like semantic keywords is a great example of you've really got to dial that prompt in, and I show you how to do that in that guide. You've really got to dial it into even because if you're like, hey, give me semantic keywords for this page, what you're going to get back is total garbage. But if you're really like, hey, I want you to look at the top 10 people that are ranking for this and give me the words and don't include stop words, if you really kind of dial it in, it will give you a list of words and it's better than nothing, but it's still nowhere near as good as using a semantic tool like a ClearScope or a Surfer SEO to really do great semantic optimization. So yes, it can do keywords, but it's not that great. And then also too, as an industry, I think we overanalyze on keywords. Like I in general, I strongly recommend you not over freak out about keywords and finding the perfect keyword and that type of thing. But I have been categorically unimpressed to this point to what these tools do on keywords compared to what other tools that as SEOs we've been using for years do on keywords. Now, doesn't mean that that's going to be this way forever and soon. Shoot, probably while we're talking, some new language model is going to develop some great SEO tool that's going to be free, blah, 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 and this will be an outdated slide. But at the moment, I've been categorically unimpressed. Um, but some things that it does a great job is optimization. So again, if you keep it generic, um, I don't love it. Optimization recommendations, keyword insertion, content expansion, it absolutely does these things. And again, if you can really dial it in, it does a nice job. And I probably should start content expansion because if you do a content expansion the right way, that's a great use of this. Keyword insertion is great. Like, hey, I used a tool like ClearScope. I got a list of all these semantic relevant words. Now I want you to weave it in the text. I think that's a great starting point, but you've really got to go through and make sure it's doing a nice job. So this is just sort of my belief on semantic optimization and great content optimization. The way to cheat on SEO is go grab a list of semantically relevant words or words that aren't the exact keyword but are words that are related. So we worked with a rafting company, and so they wanted to rank for a keyword like Colorado rafting. You run it through a semantic tool, it pops up with a word like weather. If I wanted to cheat, I could go, we have great weather here in Colorado. And that is what a tool like ChatGPT will do for you, is it'll make a sentence that goes, we got great weather here in Colorado, or regardless of the weather, rafting is fun. But truly great optimization is about sitting back and understanding the intent of, well, why are these words popping up? So when we did that example with the client, where we saw these words like weather and clothing and parking, and we really sat back and we realized that the reason that stuff's popping up is because the person who's trying to book a rafting trip is a planning mom, and she wants all the information. She wants like 90% of the details before she's willing to reach out or book a trip. And so instead of cheating and going, we got good weather, we went, okay, here's what to expect based on the weather. And here's our weather policy. And here's how to dress for the weather. And here's the clothes. And here's the snacks that we offered. Here's how close the parking is. And we really leaned into that persona and why those words appeared. And we had just tremendous results. I should have included that case study here, but huge increase in, not only things like the conversion rate on the site and the traffic, but on average order value. Um, so it was a really great case study, and it was really about doing a great job writing the content for the user and using a semantic tool as an indicator of that. If you're going to use artificial intelligence, you really don't want to eliminate that critical thinking component of like, okay, well, why is this popping up in the content? And why is this here? And why do I need to include it? And don't take the shortcut of just popping in the keyword and weaving it in because you can. And then you can use these tools to do things like generate schema. I'm concerned for you if you're having to manually create your schema, but you can use it to do it. Um, and then metadata. This is a great one. This is probably like, I love using artificial intelligence and ChatGPT for things that I hate doing. And I cannot wait for the time that we have an amazing metadata tool that launches that we don't have to think about it, because metadata is like the most obnoxious practice in SEO. It takes a bunch of time. It's meticulous and monotonous, and then we know that Google's caring about it less and less. So I do love using metadata, and we have a great prompt of how to get it to get into the metadata that you want and how you want it, and then get it to do that more at scale. So not having to manually go through each time to really get the right page title and meta description and spending a bunch of time per, but really getting it dialed in for one and then getting it to do a bunch for you. So um Metadata is the worst. Am I right? Okay. And then content development. So some things that it does a really nice job at. Again, it can find content gaps. I think that other tools do a better job, plus critical thinking, plus understanding your business and your website really well. It does an amazing job on content topics. And I think this is really great as you're trying to dial in. Let's say you're trying to write a blog calendar for a really, kind of difficult topic. This can really help you just kind of with that writer's block and just think of different ways to approach it. Titles, I've loved every title that I've gotten rewritten by ChatGPT by far versus the one that I originally wrote it in. It's doing a really nice job, and I love asking it for 5 options so that I can pick the title I like the best, but it definitely does a great job on writing just kind of those H1 main titles. Content outlines, this saves a lot of time in terms of, okay, we want a content outline and how do we want the content structured? If you're giving, instructions to a copywriter, or you're going to have ChatGPT write it for you and you want to get it started on an outline. Research, I don't have this asterished here. Yes, you can ask it for research, but I have a great example. I think it's in the guide. I asked for points for an infographic. I was like, hey, just give me 10 talking points about X, video stats or something. And then it went out and found 10 stats for me. And then I clicked, and 7 of the 10 stats it provided linked to 404 pages and non-real stats. It just completely made it up. So I put a real big asterisk on this if you're using it for research, of just be really cautious of the research. And again, if you have no idea what you're talking about and you have no idea if it's true or not, you might have to spend the time double checking that this research is correct. And you really want to fact check everything. And you want to be very, very careful not to let ChatGPT or Bard written content flow straight to the website. And we're starting to see that pop up everywhere. And that's a huge problem. And especially if you're in an industry where you're going to be held legally accountable for the content on your website. So if you've got a compliance team, you're in legal, you're in medical, this could get really damaging really quickly. And then it does write copy. And again, you can really hone it in to write the copy for you. I like it a lot better for rewriting copy. I think it does a really nice job if you could give it great inputs on your tone and what you like, and then you have some initial copy you started with, or maybe you've gotten from a copywriter, and then you have take another swing at it and you tell it what you don't like about it, what you want it to improve. It does a really nice job there, and I think that as SEOs, that saves us a ton of time. Sometimes as SEOs, we're not the best writers. Sometimes we are. Sometimes we're not. And then local SEO, a lot of asterisks here. I think there's a lot of really great applications for local SEO, whether it's, in general for local SEO. Doing great at local SEO, first and foremost, starts with filling in the boxes on local directory listings, like your Google profile. And on your Google business profile, it's kind of this fill in as much stuff as you can. So it's great. Get optimized profile information in there. A lot of us ignore Q&A and business updates and posts because it just doesn't, it's hard to remember to go in there. It's just kind of monotonous, add stuff in. This is a great way to knock some of that stuff out. What are common questions that we should answer? And then should we answer it? Boom, let me go add those into my Q&A and just keep bulking out my profile. And this is also great, again, back to that content optimization of optimizing out your local page. So if you're driving local foot traffic, and you have a page, associated to your area, just getting that optimized, and then also finding some unique local directories. So I think a lot of us know about, NAP distribution. I'm going to go to something like a Bright Local and shoot my listing out to the galaxy. But, if you want to do a great job, ranking locally, what I really love is find local listings. Like here in Denver, what are Denver listings that something like a Bright Local is never going to find for me? But what are 10 places? Maybe it's Westward, maybe it's a local meetup group that has who knows. But what are some different places that I could get my brand listed in and volume line listed in that are more associated to my local area versus kind of these generic NAP distribution citations that we're all kind of chasing all the time. So doing some research like that and finding that stuff, I find it worked really well. So, and again, all these prompts are available in that guide. But I think local SEO is a really cool study. And then, kind of part and parcel to that is link earning. Link earning ideas, I didn't find it inspiring. But again, if you dial it in, so instead of link earning ideas, if you're like, hey, what are 10 ideas for me to be a little more newsworthy in the Denver area? Now we're cooking. So maybe reframing that question in a different way. And in general, I like to think of just being newsworthy versus earning links. finding relevant sites to get links. This can be really helpful. Again, there's other tools that do this for you that a lot of us already have access to, but that this can give you some ideas of some places to go get some relevant links. And then you can use it to write outreach emails. I asked it to do it, and then I vomited a little inside my mouth when I saw the output, because it's like all these horrible emails I see all the time. So again, it's not asterisk. But there is definitely, if you're a little more creative in your prose, you could probably get it there. But you definitely can write these generic, do you want to guest post, blah blah blah, outreach emails. It'll write them for you. Doesn't mean you should have it, but it'll do it. And then tech SEO, we tried a bunch of different stuff to try and just see what this can do in tech SEO. This is a womp womp. It can create some tags, like you can do your hreflang, you can get it to do robots.txt. I'm going to say a little prayer for you if you're using AI to do either of these things, because there's more efficient and effective ways of doing this stuff, but you can get it to do it. But in general, that we really struggled finding great use cases for technical SEO in something like a ChatGPT compared to a paid SEO, technical SEO tool or a crawler. It's just, there's great crawlers out there that are already using artificial intelligence or big data or best practices to give you great recommendations on technical SEO. And so we couldn't find a lot of great use cases for the moment outside of that for using predictive language models for something like technical SEO. And then SEO reporting, definitely report best practices. It's a great lifesaver. As I don't know if you know this, but Google's forcing us to GA4 in July. I'm bracing for all the companies that are going to call us in a couple months because they've ignored it. I think I saw a stat the other day that something like 74% of sites still haven't made the switch to GA4. God help us all. But as you're porting things over, you might notice that UTMs in GA4 are different and event setup is different. And it'll do a nice job of giving you recommendations of how to set up your events. Like, hey, I'm trying to set up a click to call event for this. How do I do it in GA4? Here's what you do. Just really nice streamlined how-tos on how to do some of that stuff. Or, hey, I need to create a UTM campaign because UTM campaigns are different and you need to be careful in GA4 of how you do them so that you don't get a bunch of stuff dumped into your unassigned category. So it can help with some of that. It can give other how-tos. Again, I wasn't that inspired compared to other Looker Studio how-tos, but it'll do it. And it'll give you some like tool recommendations of things like SEO reporting. If you're like, oh, what's a good tool that'll help me report on competitive rankings? It'll give you some options out there. So again, stuff that you also could Google and find, but now you're not having to read through a 6,000 word article about the history of SEO tools to get to the 3 recommendations you were trying to dig for. It's kind of like on recipes. I love using AI for recipes because I'm so tired of having to read about the history of a recipe and where it came from and how to pick a piece of meat. And you gotta like crawl through 6,000 words to get to the guts of it. If you're really just trying to get to the guts of some stuff, it can be really useful for that. Okay, just checking my time. I'm doing terrible. All right, I'm going to click through this really fast so that we have a little bit of time for questions. Where is this headed? So big note, AI is growing up super fast. I think we're on the hockey stick. And you just have to note that GPT and OpenAI is just one language model. It's not even the only language model that OpenAI has. We're talking about there are hundreds of language models. There are thousands of applications sitting on top of them. I've noted some here. Lambda, language model that convinced a Google engineer that it was sentient. Gato is a language model that can, I think that's the one that can multitask. Hold on, I made myself a note so I wouldn't remember. Yeah, it's the one. It can play Atari and have a robot arm do stuff and do math. Bloom, it can do 46 different languages. There's one I don't have on here that it can predict protein structures. Stable diffusion is converting text to images. So I think the big thing to note is that just because a predictive language model in its current iteration isn't doing something doesn't mean that it's not coming. And I think this is where, when we're looking at the breadth of this, is that there is a big iceberg here that's coming, that there are a whole lot of language models that do a whole lot of things. and look at everything that's happening just off of one application, off of one language model, and the implications it has, let alone all of these language models and all the potential applications and all the current applications that are launching. And this is where, when we're thinking about this as a seismic shift, this is where we're really thinking of the iceberg's pretty big here. So I'm going to pop through this really fast. Things to also note that are coming on plugins. So when you think about, well, it's just right now it's just predictive text. I put text in and it does stuff. ChatGPT and OpenAI are racing into plugins, where plugins will be able to communicate with a website, real-time data, and ChatGPT and able to get you to do an action. So not only will it, so a great example is you could go on Instacart, look up a recipe, ChatGPT gives you the recipe recommendations, and then sees what your local store has in stock and adds that stuff to the cart. And you can just imagine, once you add a website plus action plus predictive language model, all of the use cases that can start to really happen from something where now it's moving out of text and predictive language into something bigger. Um, and then this is the one that's catching everybody's different attention right now is Auto GPT. And I've kind of explained, like, right now what we're all used to is kind of this human to chat GPT interaction that's happening. With Auto GPT, it's communicating with itself to get into an output. See the difference here of what's different? Um, people are starting to freak out here a little bit, just in terms of, like, well, when does this become sentient and when does this just run? And there's an example of the starting prompt was get a startup going for $100, and then the thing went. And just, how far down the rabbit hole will this really go? So that's catching a lot of people's attention. And then I know we're all really paying attention to what Google's looking for. They've updated their guidelines twice on what they think about AI generated content. I have a link to the most updated, which is AI content's okay, I guess, but still try to have really good content. I can tell you they're going to really want you to use Bard and not ChatGPT. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. They've rushed and launched Bard. If you're not signed up on the wait list, which I think probably most of us are at this point, I have a link to it here. Go ahead and sign up for the wait list and wait with the rest of us to get your lucky you won the lottery and can test out Bard email. And then Google has, this is really interesting. They've launched recommendations of how the world should regulate AI. I just think that's a fascinating read. And then coming soon, these are kind of some bigger news. They've got a project running in tandem with Bard called Project Magic, where they're trying to be more leaning in more to artificial intelligence in the SERPs and what they can really do. There's some really interesting stuff they're testing out and trying, and we are expected to hear a lot about that in May, when they make some announcements about what's actually going to show up in the SERPs. But we might see some really big things, like is a chat bot going to follow us around? I have flashbacks of, like, those little paper clicks that we used to have in Microsoft Office. And then a big thing they demoed this past week on 60 Minutes is text to video. Um, so in addition to, we might see Google's own version of text to image launching here in May or in 2023. They're also heavily demoing text to video, which looked really interesting and kind of the next extrapolation. So lots happening there. All right, so legal ramifications, we're going to run out of time. So I'm just going to note that there's a whole lot of issues and legal concerns with AI, and I've written them all out here. And then I just thought this was interesting that every one of these people have noted the bigger concerns they have with artificial intelligence and its in how it could negatively affect society, or the profound risks. And every one of them has a company that is rushing to develop AI at a rapid pace. Elon Musk has sent this open letter and, like, let's stop it. At the same time, he's now founded another AI company and it's getting it to rapidly develop AI. Google's like, oh yeah, this is going to cause a big problem, and they're sprinting. Steve Wozniak, Apple has just announced that they're reevaluating AI and they're taking AI. So all three of these have thought leaders who have said this is going to be a problem, but at the same time have their companies sprinting towards AI, which I think is just an interesting example of how AI is going on an accelerated pace and how we're on that hockey stick and how it's starting to feel a little out of control. Okay, and so then in here, just really quick recommendations. I think as SEOs, be prepared. We don't really know the implications of when Bard launches full stream, but everybody's already talking about how it's not attributing websites to information it's pulling. And we're already sort of bracing for, are we going to lose unbranded traffic, both in SEO and paid search? But we don't know. We thought that with position 0 and rich snippets, and actually it was fine. But I have a feeling that it's going to be a different story here with Bard. So there's some things in here, but I think, always think about, build your first party data, build your brand, because when somebody searches your brand, they're coming to your website. So how do you continue to build that up, get that branded traffic up, build up that first party data, and then really think about how you up level your skills and use tools like this in conjunction with what you know how to do in SEO to make yourself stronger. And then I've got some resources. Every tool in here is something that we've played around with and that we really like. And then I made there's a big old directory listing if you want to see like all the AI tools out there. There's a giant directory of all of them, but these ones here are ones that we really like. I'll put a note on, I really like Canva's text to image. I've played around with a few different ones, and that one's just great. And if you're doing anything with imagery, I think that's a great tool. Originality.ai is really great if you're concerned that your content sounds like a robot, or is somebody throwing it through AI and they're not doing a good job. That tool will help you catch it. But a lot of these I think are tools we've all heard of and use a lot. And then people ask me a lot who I like to follow to stay up to date. So I got to listen here. And then if you have questions, here's an email address that you can send, or if you have any trouble getting the slides. And I am so sorry. I talked as fast as I could, and I still didn't do a good job getting this under 40 minutes. But we have a few minutes here for questions if we want to throw some out.
Thanks a lot, Natalie. Yeah, we're not gonna waste time on anything else. Let's just jump to the questions because we're short on time. And I just want to remind everyone, this is the opportunity to throw in more questions if you have, because there's a whole discussion going on in the chat about integrating ChatGPT with Google Docs and Google Sheets. And some people have already found each other and are connecting with each other on LinkedIn. So let me bring up the first question. No, let's start with another one. Actually, I wanted to start with, okay, this one. This was the first one that came in. So if we use GPT to write content, won't it get flagged by Google and rankings will tank? Because that is one of the biggest concerns.
Yep. You know what? I'll send a link to an article I wrote kind of going through this whole point, kind of point by point. And the answer is yes, maybe. So here's a note, and that's where I think it's important that Google's updated their guidelines a couple of times on AI generated content. And this is where a tool like originality.ai, which is designed to help you catch GPT-3.5 content, can be helpful, but not necessarily. In Google's updates, they were really, in their new AI content updates, they were really clear that just because you use AI to write content does not mean that it's necessarily going to get flagged, although we're seeing lots of examples where it still is. And they're noting that it's important to have relevant, useful content, blah, 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 kind of the Google tagline. So the big note is you can use GPT to write content. There's case studies of like, oh, I'm just going to use it as like a publisher and just massively make content. We're seeing these graphs where it goes like this and then it tanks when it goes through a helpful content update. And basically the point I make in my article is that if you write content with ChatGPT, Google's not happy about it. It's a problem for them. It's a problem with fundamentally how their SERPs works. They don't like you using a competitive product. And these helpful content updates, they're getting more and more stringent. So what you don't want to do is sort of give the robot the reins and the wheel to write your content. And that's where I think you're really going to risk it getting flagged. And then if you have incorrect information, or if the tool completes a copyright violation, all of those things, I think there's a lot of risks. So even if you write the content and publish it today, could it risk 6 months down the road? Yes. And there's lots of examples of Google changing their mind later on a policy and all of a sudden tanking content. So for all of those reasons, I really recommend that in general, you don't just fully write your content in ChatGPT for the purpose of SEO ranking. There's a lot of places where you can write content like, hey, I'm writing emails. Hey, I'm writing a social post. You can use it to support writing your content. Hey, I need a better summary. Hey, help me outline this article a little bit. But hey, help me rewrite this to make it a little more fun and informal. I think there's a lot of examples where it can be a good content assistant for you, but I'd really recommend, just because of the risk, that you not just let GPT write your content. Not because it's going to get flagged today. It might work great today, but we're seeing lots of examples where it is getting eventually flagged, or it's tanking ranking profiles, or it's coming under that helpful content update.
Great. There's also another question. It's not very very specific, but it's like about rewriters. So I'm guessing it's very similar response would be because they use pretty much the same ideas and still it's specifically AI written, right?
Correct. So I like using AI to rewrite content. So like if I get something, let's say I have a copywriter and they wrote it and I was like, oh, it just doesn't flow right, or this, I'm a little more fun than this. Make it a little more fun. Like the annoying feedback you get from clients sometimes when they look at clients. You just give that annoying feedback to ChatGPT or to Bard. And it can be really nice to give you. And again, go in bites. But yes, you can rewrite. And I think if you're doing article spending, which please stop, but if you're gonna do it anyways, yes, you could do an article, use a tool like this to do something like rewrite an article or respin it, but please don't. Please stop. Please stop gunking the internet. But yes, I like using these tools for rewrites because they're also a lot less likely to make stuff up. When you ask for a rewrite, it's not going to go out and get new information. It's going to just rewrite the information. So I'm not at risk of it like all of a sudden coming up with some new brand or new recommendation or new website it wants to talk about. So it really tampers down that it's a habit of vomiting made up information.
Great, thank you. Yeah, another question. Still all very similar around the same topic, but a bit of different distinctions. So if ChatGPT is not producing reliable content, how can we use it? How can we benefit from this model that doesn't in a way that doesn't affect rankings? Is there like a way that you do it
Yep.
personally?
So the way that I would say is that imagine like all the process you've got to go through to write a great piece of content. Okay, man, I'm sitting down and I know the 6 key points I want to talk. I know the keywords I want to weave in. I know I want a paragraph that talks about this, and I know my main talking points. If you can give it some of those inputs, I think it does a great job on creating some content for you. And again, if you want it to do a little research for you, just do the research and back check it. But the key is that you've kind of got to go back and forth with it to get your content developed, and you can't just let it take the wheel. Um, but when you think about content created by the AI model, you want to think that all these elements that go into a great piece of content. Okay, well, what's the topic and what's my unique spin and what's my opinion on it and what tone do I want to write it in and what do I want to make sure I include, and man, I need some sources in here, and man, I really want to, what I mean? You can really use it to kind of go back and forth to sort of flush the content out. But my recommendation is you just try not to take yourself out of the equation. Don't give it a topic, sit back and let it go. But I think if you're an active participant throughout, you can get to a great piece of content that is great for SEO. And then keep in mind that, I mean, content is the fuel that makes all digital marketing things work. So, you know what I mean? Think about all the extrapolations for content for SEO, right? Hey, I wrote an article and I want to share it on LinkedIn. Great. Write me a LinkedIn post. Hey, I want to send an email blast. Great. Write me ChatGPT, write me an email blast. Think of all the different things that you really need content for. Hey, I need to request a testimony. I need to request a quote from a stakeholder to go in this article. Let me write an email requesting the quote. Let me give him 6 examples of a quote he can use, and he can pick the one he likes the best. So think about all the different ways that content happens around your core SEO work. Because content really is the fuel that makes this all together. And I think that's where this tool becomes really interesting, because content at its core is one of the case studies we're really seeing where it can do stuff. You just got to be careful about some of the limitations. And that's where it's like, yeah, don't let it do your thinking for you.
Great, awesome. We're gonna take two or more questions other than this one. So yeah, this one is about, so you said rewriting content works well. So if I were to copy and paste factual content from a factual source, will it still look robotic? Is because I'm getting people are trying to figure out ways of
Yep.
applying this.
No, I mean, you absolutely could. So you could go to a site and be like, okay, my competitor just wrote an amazing, or I want to, the CDC has this great article about this topic, and I want to grab it, and then I want to rewrite it a little bit. I don't want it to come up with new information, but I want it to make it more fun, more millennial, and I want to make these 2 key points. You kind of give it those inputs, and yes, you can do that, and no, it will not look robotic. But you might have to work a little bit to get it into your brand tone. So one of the things that I like to do when I do a content rewrite like that, where it's okay, I'm factual content from a factual source, is I have a starting prompt I start with for my stuff. I'm like, hey, I'm Natalie, and this is this, and I'm a thought leader, blah blah blah, and then I actually grab some writing samples of stuff that I really love that I've written, and go, this is my writing style, and I use that all as inputs. And then I don't respond, and now I would like to rewrite this article, right, or something like that. And then even then, I still find myself tweaking it a little bit, but I find that I get a much better output if I really do that. But yeah, you just want to kind of feed it. Well, what's the tone and how am I rewriting this? And what do you want out of it? And you can also, I mean, you don't really have to. A lot of times it won't make stuff up if you do it this way, but you can also specify, don't add any more facts. These are the facts I want to say. You can give it instructions and information like that.
Great. Yeah, a lot of great points here. And I think we're going to end it with this question, which I personally think is really good. So do you think AI will eventually impact search engine usage? Because I already caught myself doing this. So will it affect our business as SEMs?
Yes, so I think that one, AI is going to I think eventually, I think within the next 5 years, AI is gonna touch all of us. I think that, and especially anybody in an intellectual, job, but I mean, just across the board, AI is gonna affect us all. No one's safe, but it's not that you're unsafe. So yes, I think this will affect us. I think it's gonna affect us as SEMs faster. I think we're just at the beginning edge of it, which can be fun and terrifying and exciting and horrible all at the same time. Do I think it will affect search engine usage? Yes. And it's hard to predict why. That's why I have some of those recommendations. And I'm sorry I had to go through those so fast of things to be focused on now. So I think one of the big things that you have to really focus on is the value of building a brand. And as SCMs, I think we're going to have to shift our world to, yes, non-branded exists, but now what are ways that we get more people knowing about, learning about, becoming aware of our brand, and how broad does that go? If you're a brand that relies on publishing content, I mean, I think a lot of publishers are sweating right now because we don't really know how this is going to affect publisher ranking. And I can tell you, publishers are already getting upset about what appears to be copyright violations from Barb with inattributed links. And then, we've got announcements like articles are going to stop popping up in SERPs. So I think this is going to affect what the SERP looks like. I think it's going to affect how people use it. And yes, I think that, we're going to have to adapt. But, as SCMs, that's not really new for us. We adapt all the time to all the crazy shit that Google seems to throw at us. So at least we're all used to it. But I do think, one, tooling up now of how can you get more done and do a better job doing SEO, and then how do we stay ahead? How do we help um, our brands really have great content, really have thought leadership, really stand out, really be unique? There's a great quote of the internet's a big place, SEO makes it a little smaller. I think that concept's still sticking around. It's just how that plays out is going to be a little different. So yes, it will affect us, but at least we're all, as an industry, we're all really used to the crazy shit that gets thrown at us that we got to hop through. But I absolutely think that we're about to see things get thrown at us that we got to hop through.
Thank you, Natalie. And yeah, I want to just show a couple of other slides from SE Rankings part, and also there's a question about SE Rankings AI rating tool. And let me just go through the slides quickly, and we're gonna end today's webinar on ChatGPT and AI and Bard, including yeah. So once again, you are welcome to get an extended free trial of SE Ranking for 14 days. That includes access to a lot more tools than usual. Free trial up on our website. You can also join our community. It's currently on Facebook, but we are rolling it out on Reddit as well, because we've had a lot of people asking us to do it on a more popular platform. Yeah, so yeah, that's the reality, unfortunately, for Facebook. So yeah, we talk about SEO, about SEO ranking, share different swags, and yeah, basically it's an opportunity to network with similar people, just like some people in the chat, like Sean was able to help out a couple of people in the chat. So that is also a part of the magic. And if you are subscribed to SEO Ranking, then you already have access to a couple of courses about basic SEO. There's also, we rolled out a content SEO course recently, and we are in the process of rolling out. Is our content tool, is our content marketing platform is already rolled out, but we are rolling out the AI like in a week. So if you are interested in our stuff, well, you can just visit our website or sign up, and we definitely communicate this stuff wherever, also on social media as well. So yeah, be sure to explore what we have to offer, and also be sure to reach out to Natalie and download that guide, we're also going to include it in the follow-up email. So yeah, guys don't need to think about anything. We will just throw it in there just to make sure that you have everything that you guys need. And just wishing everybody good luck with these technologies, and be careful with using them, because at SEO Ranking from day one we didn't rely on it. So we like try to have 90% unique content at least, because we're thinking about the future. So that is something that we can add from our part. Yeah, and once again, thanks to everybody for taking the time to be with us. And Natalie, this has been amazing, and I hope to do something like this in the future, because definitely if we do it in 1 week, we'll have more time, more stuff to talk about for sure.
Right. Maybe we should a whole one where we just all like speculate about the future and all go through an existential crisis together. You know?
That was actually one of the questions that I didn't ask, but it was like, when does ChatGPT turn into Skynet? Yeah, and I love the short circuit. It's really threw me back of Steve Gutenberg. I'm also an 80s kid. So yeah, that was a great comparison.
I just remember the robot and the input, and then his whole world was based on that set of encyclopedias to start.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Take care, everybody, and stay safe. Yeah, this is no longer actually applies, because that was like something I said during COVID. But yeah, either way, stay safe is always a good
Still stay safe, but I mean, still be safe.
Right. Okay, take care, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
With tons of data, SEO can be hard unless your tool can play its part. You've heard of SEO ranking so hot right now. It makes the data simple, makes it wow. Get a bird's eye view of any market, from LA to Kyoto, it's yours to target. With money keywords, we'll show you how to make your suggestions, then just wow. Oh wow, long tails, what's next? Optimize your page and go rank up your text. Wham, bam, you're on track. Check up on your rankings, we got your back. In Google, YouTube, Yahoo, and Bing, wow, accurate rankings monitoring. To get to where you wanna be right now, go tell your website issues shout. She told her website issues shout. Oh wow, so great, that's it. Honey also get an awesome teamwork kit. White label users, season reports, data sharing options of all sorts. Content backlink on page 2